On Saturday, when many of us were out working in our backyards, spending time with our family, maybe even catching a little college football on TV, the U.S. House of Representatives took a vote on a continuing resolution that ultimately passed. In other words, in simpler language, Kevin McCarthy sold out the House GOP, sold out the institution of the House of Representatives, and sold his political soul in the name of making sure that the government did not shut down. At around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the CR passed with a majority of Democrat votes. Needless to say, I have a lot to say about this, so strap in, ladies and gentlemen. This is about to get really good. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your front porch conservative. Step on up to my electronic front porch and let's talk. So, as I said in my opening, on Saturday afternoon, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a continuing resolution that the Senate concurred upon, and then shortly before midnight, President Joe Biden signed it into law. We now have another 45 days of government funding to get to a long term debt deal. Now, I've got a lot to say about this, and none of it is good. There are so many things wrong with all of this. It just borders on the stupid. And frankly, as far as I'm concerned, people are out there saying Kevin McCarthy has put his job on the line. Well, as far as I'm concerned, brother, it's on the line and ought to be erased. But we'll get to that momentarily. Let's start with the news about the deal, what it looks like, what it is. So we will begin with the messenger.com. Headline: House beats the clock, approves government funding, Senate poised to prevent shutdown, which of course they've already done. The House passed the funding extension with overwhelming bipartisan support, even though Democrats were upset that it did not include Ukraine aid. Hold on to that thought, folks. We're going to come back to that shortly. Article written by Lindsay McPherson, Stephen Newcomb, and Nolan D. McCaskill. We read the following. The House on Saturday passed a bill to keep the government funded for 7 weeks, punting it to the Senate with just 9 hours to spare before the partial shutdown. The House and Senate Democrats initially rejected the GOP bill as inadequate because it excluded emergency funding for Ukraine aid. But according to Democrat sources, the White House and Speaker Kevin McCarthy, whose leadership position is on the line for taking a bipartisan path forward, no, it's on the line for different reasons, but we'll get to that too, agreed to bring up a separate bill on Ukraine funding soon. Like I said, folks, hold that thought about Ukraine. We'll come back to it in just a minute. Okay, let's get into this. For days and weeks leading up to this vote, McCarthy talked tough. McCarthy said, we're going to hold the line. We're going to reduce spending. You don't believe me? Folks, I want you to take a listen to it from his own mouth. Listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. This is an interview he did on CNBC a few days before this weekend. So, folks, hang on and listen to this.
I believe this is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to deal with the border, deal with our funding, and put us on a path that this country is stronger. I will listen just as I sat yesterday. I also think another.
Okay. He's saying it. He's saying it here for everybody, God in the world, to hear it. Hey, we're in a position to deal with the border. We're going to deal with our funding. You think that's the only interview he did? Well, let me play a little bit more. Here's an interview he did again on CNBC.
I know Sunday's football day. If people have this type of attitude, they quit in the third quarter. One thing, if I hope you realize about me, is I never give up. And you know what? If we have to play into overtime to get it right, I will do just that.
I never give up. What do you call this? What do you call this CR? Now, I know what people are sitting out there saying. Oh, come on, front porch. You got to fund the government. You got to do the right thing. Okay, I don't necessarily disagree with that. But at what cost? That's the $1,000,000 question here. At what cost are we doing this? Now, the reason that I'm extremely upset about this, as are many other people, there's a couple of things you ought to keep in mind about this deal that went down. So let me show you some information here that really ought to just send you up. Here's some verification. This is from BeckerNews.com. Look at this. The funding package sustains government operations at the current 2023 levels until mid-November, potentially setting the stage for another crisis if full government funding is not secured by that time. House approved this package on a vote of 335 to 91, with most Republicans, nearly all Democrats supporting it. The actual breakdown is 209 Democrats and 126 Republicans. This CR passed with majority Democrat support. There was one Democrat who voted against it, and he did it only because there was no funding for Ukraine in the CR. Now, let's get to that question, shall we? Okay, everybody knows that Joe Biden is absolutely hot to trot to make sure that we keep funding this ongoing war in Ukraine between the Ukrainians and the Russians. A war, by the way, that the Ukrainians are losing. You don't believe me? Go look at some independent sources. You got Ukrainian soldiers out there who are actively surrendering to the Russians. They want no more of this. But yet, our government keeps funding this thing. We're warmongering. In case you're wondering what it gets down to, we are warmongers. We're giving them the weapons, we're giving them the money, we're giving them everything to keep this slaughter going. And finally, somebody stood up and said no. Or did they? Folks, I want you to take a look at a couple things real quick. This is the reaction of the White House to the passage of the CR. Look at this. This is from Joe Biden's desk. Tonight, bipartisan majorities in the House and Senate voted to keep the government open, preventing any unnecessary crisis that would have inflicted needless pain on millions of hardworking Americans. This bill ensures the active duty troops will continue to be paid, travelers will be spared airport delays, millions of women and children will continue to have access to vital nutrition assistance, and so much more. This is good news for the American people. Now, go to the last paragraph. While the Speaker and an overwhelming majority in Congress have been steadfast in their support of Ukraine, there is no new funding in this agreement to continue that support. We cannot, under any circumstances, allow American support for Ukraine to be interrupted. I fully expect the Speaker to keep his commitment to the people of Ukraine and secure passage of the support needed to help Ukraine at this critical moment. Expect him to keep his commitment? What exactly does that mean? Well, let's take a look at somebody else. Here's from Hakeem Jeffries and the House Democrat caucus. Take a look at this, folks. This will just blow your mind. From the beginning of this Congress, House Democrats have made clear that we will always put people over politics, seek bipartisan common ground, and whenever possible, and fight Republican extremism whenever necessary. Now, go to the last paragraph of the statement. Moving forward, there is still work that needs to be done, including renewing support for the valiant Ukrainian effort to defeat Russia on the battlefield in the name of freedom and democracy. When the House returns, we expect, this is the Democrat House caucus, we expect House Speaker Kevin McCarthy to advance a bill to the House floor for an up or down vote that supports Ukraine, consistent with his commitment to making sure that Vladimir Putin, Russia, and authoritarianism are defeated. We must stand with the Ukrainian people until victory is won. Well, we'll be standing with them forever because they ain't going to win against the Russians, but that's a whole other argument. Okay, you've got the President of the United States saying he expects that McCarthy keep his commitment. Keep his commitment to the Ukrainian people by supporting new funding. You got the House Democrats saying that they're expecting an up or down vote on a Ukraine bill. What the heck is going on here? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it may very well be that in order to get this deal done, Kevin McCarthy sold everybody out and sold everybody right down the river. Folks, take a look at this. This goes back to that original article from the messenger.com. I want to take you deep into the article. Listen to this. Representative Greg Meeks, Democrat, New York, the top Democrat on the Foreign Affairs Committee, said there is still time for Congress to pass more Ukraine aid. I think we've had enough until this year, he said, of previously approved funds. Congress could still act sooner, said Annie Kuster, Democrat, New Hampshire. It's her understanding There's an agreement between the White House, McCarthy, and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer to consider Ukraine aid in the next few weeks. House Democrat leader Hakeem Jeffries signaled that, too. He said during a press conference after the vote he expected action on Ukraine in the next few days. Quote, we need to address the security situation in Ukraine to ensure the Ukrainian people can continue to fight bravely and courageously and defeat Vladimir Putin and Russian aggression. West Virginia Republican Senator Shelley Moore Capito told reporters she also heard rumors of a deal between the White House and McCarthy. She said she expected the House stopgap funding bill would get through the Senate. Quote, I think that it's going to be very hard to deny here in terms of the will to get something done to prevent the shutdown. Capito said that's number one, live to fight another day on other issues. Ladies and gentlemen, if what is being reported is true by these representatives and senators, McCarthy cut a side deal with the White House, Chuck Schumer in the Senate, and Hakeem Jeffries saying, look, you guys help me get this thing passed. We get this CR done. I'll give you an up or down vote on Ukraine aid in the House. A vote, by the way, that House Republicans have made clear, a significant portion of them, they don't want any part of this. They don't want to fund this thing anymore. You've got Senate Republicans like Rand Paul and Mike Lee who said not one more dime. Yet what does McCarthy do? In order to get this thing done, in order to get these 209 Democrats to vote for this piece of crap resolution, he says, I'll give you an up or down vote on a Ukraine bill. We're going to leave it out of there. Just help me get this thing passed. And brother, that's exactly what he did. Judas sold out everybody. Congratulations to Judas McCarthy. You have sold out the House GOP. You have sold out the House as an institution. You've sold out the country. You've sold out the Ukrainian people who are dying and being slaughtered in this ongoing grist mill grinder of a war. You've guaranteed they're going to keep on dying. And for what? So you could be the adult in the room. We've got to get things done. No, you don't. What you've got to get done is stand up for principle. If you genuinely believe that now is the time to force this government into spending cuts, then by God, fight for it. Make the Democrats have to defend this position. Make Joe Biden have to defend further spending. But instead, you didn't want to be the bad guy. You didn't want to be perceived as the one who caused the problem. So now, the House will continue passing appropriations bills. They'll send them over to the Senate. The Senate has already indicated they're not going to do one single solitary damn spending cut. You're going to go into some kind of conference committee, pass an omnibus bill before Christmas so everybody can go home and say they did something. Well, whoop-tee-doo. You haven't done a thing, sir, except prove to the White House and prove to Democrats that you can be rolled. Not by the conservatives that you're blaming for this, by the way, but by the Democrats. They know they can roll you, and by God, they've done it. You promised back in January, in order to obtain the speakership, that you would help reduce government spending. You promised full, complete investigations into the Biden crime family. We haven't even gotten there that far yet. You promised all kinds of things. You put your butt in the sling for it. And now, as expected, you're not delivering. So where are we going with this going forward? I'll tell you exactly what's going to happen. It's just like I said. In 45 days, we're headed for an omnibus bill that crams all this crap in there. You're not going to fight for these spending cuts. You just proved it with the passage of this CR. And now nothing's going to happen. And now $2 trillion of annual deficit. Let me say it again. $2 trillion of annual deficit is going to keep on going and going and going. We are headed for the financial cliff. No thanks to you, sir. Now, what else is going to happen? Well, take a look at this. Not unexpectedly, McCarthy faces test as Gaetz moves to oust him for working with Democrats. This is from the New York Times. A day after the Republican Speaker turned to Democrats to help pass a stopgap spending bill to avert a shutdown, the far-right congressman promised to try to remove him from his post. And you know what I say? Go for it, Matt. Do it. Honor your word. You might be the only person up on Capitol Hill who's willing to do it. Go ahead. Now, I can just hear what people out there are going to say, but Front Porch, it's not going to work. McCarthy's got the votes to retain the speakership. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're right. Gaetz will probably fail in this attempt, and he'll fail on the next one, and the next one. But as far as I'm concerned, Gaetz should keep on doing it. You know why? If you're going to get Republicans around this country to open their eyes and realize how much of a sellout Kevin McCarthy is, make the Democrats be the ones that save his political bacon. Because if the vote to vacate the chair is anything similar to the vote on the CR, that means McCarthy will need Democrats to vote for him in order to retain the speakership. Because let's just say 209, let's just say 126 Republicans or 130 vote to retain him as speaker. Guess what? In order for him to stay in the job, he's got to have Democrats be willing to vote for him. Let's see how that happens. So yeah, I think Matt Gaetz needs to do it. And it's like I said, for this simple reason. McCarthy, you gave your word back in January that you would do certain things and not do certain things. And you, sir, have not lived up to your part of the bargain. And Gaetz told you what was going to happen if you violated these words. If you violated these words that were put in writing, no less, that he would bring a motion to vacate the chair. So you say bring it on. I say it can't come fast enough. This is probably one of the worst sellouts that I've seen in a while, but it's not to be unexpected or not necessarily surprised. But I will say one last thing in closing. Hey, Kevin, you wonder why Congress has a 19% approval rating? You wonder why the institution has no respect? Go look in the mirror and you will find your answer. But that's what I think about it. What do you think? As we start to wrap up this video, please do me some favors as always. Number one, if you're not a subscriber to the channel, please do so. Number two, please leave your comment below. I would love to hear what you think about this whole thing. Number three, please make sure you hit the bell for notifications. I want to make sure you're always aware when new videos, new live streams are coming out. Number four, please share the video around. And finally, please give me a thumbs up. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your Front Porch Conservative, and I'll see you